but there's a major tributary coming down here, which cold water is still coming in out of the mountains. And the trout tend to gather down at the bottom in these cold pools and just kind of wiggle their gills through the cold water. And because trout are cold water fish, you know, that's where they'll stay until we get some major rains. And into the fall, the water tends to cool down a little bit more.
It's so pretty here. Did you see A River Runs Through It?
Yes, I did. Great movie.
I can just envision Brad Pitt is fly fishing on a big Blackfoot in Montana, and the browns are rising to his lure. It's just such a beautiful setting here.
Sure is. Hi, I'm Pete.
Hi, I'm Ken.
And welcome to the Landscape Journal. There's an environmental movement going on right now to bring native plants back into the landscape.
What Pete is talking about is a wonderful ecological approach to gardening. It requires less pesticides and less fertilizer.
And on this particular property, we've got some great examples of that. Let me show you a couple. Over the past 100 years, we've been creating very structured type sterile gardens. Now what we're recommending is more of a natural look, similar to what you see behind me.
These native garden projects, this kind of wildscaping, is beneficial to the birds, animals, and insects. It creates a habitat and a food source for them.
And once these native naturalized gardens have been established, it creates some great wildlife viewing in your yard.
Today, we're in the lower Hudson Valley of New York at a private residence. We're going to show you a perfect example of a naturalized garden space that's consistent with the local ecosystem.
Ken, we got a great example of 4 different types of plants growing in the one corner of this garden right here. We've got the white spruce, which you can see this particular tree is blue in color. They come in different shades of green. This one is more blue than green. You can see the needles are a little bit smaller so that it has a softer feel to it. And also, as you can see right here, it's got the Virginia creeper growing in it, which is a native vine which is using it as a trellis.
Is that okay?
It's okay for now, as long as it doesn't take over the tree and get too big. If it starts to really get up and take over the tree, you might want to prune it back a little bit.
It'll have a nice color in the fall. Too.
Exactly. And then over here, Ken, we have the leucothoe, which is another native plant. Great plant because of its deer resistance.
That's really important in this area of New York.
It sure is.
They eat everything.
Especially this area. You're right. And then over here, we've got the mountain laurel, Ken. And as we know, the mountain laurel is one of the major mainstay evergreens growing up through the Appalachians right here. And as we saw early in the season, it's got this beautiful star-shaped flower.
And it being evergreen, it'll look nice in the winter.
It sure will. It'll give life to the garden in the wintertime. And then over here, Ken, we've got the shad tree. Amelanchier canadensis is the Latin name. And the reason why they call it shad is it's got these billowy white flowers early in the spring. And they say that when this thing is in flower, the shad are running up the Hudson River, as you know, if you're a fisherman, in early April.
Have you ever had shad roe?
No, I haven't.
Well, that's delicious. I'll make it for you sometime.
Oh, thank you,
nice
Ken.
Pinot Grigio, you'll love it.
Very good.
Black
Thank you
tie.
very much. I'm Pete.
I'm Ken.
And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
You know, you were telling me, I mean, the woods look a little bit messy. I think there's a kind of a stark beauty to it, but you were explaining to me about what's happening here.
Well, this is nature's cycle, Ken. What she's doing is she's taking down a lot of the weak wood, a lot of the dead wood, a lot of the weak branching structures, bringing them to the ground, and all these branches are going to decompose and add body to the soil. So it's her way of recycling you know, the ground and what's going on in the woods, so that the stronger trees, the ones that are left to grow, will be stronger, and they'll be the anchor of the woods, so to speak.
So it's nature pruning with wind and rain and snow and such.
Wind, rain, snow, hail, sleet. It's her way of making sure that the stronger trees survive and the weaker trees move on.
Isn't this beautiful? Listen to that wind. It's so pretty here.
Well, there's nothing better than being in the woods on a nice fall day.
Hi, I'm Ken. Welcome to the Landscape Journal.
And I'm Pete. Today we're going to talk about Mother Nature and bringing her from the woods into suburbia, which is behind me right here. We're going to figure out a way to do that in this property right over here. Ken, let me show you what we have over here.
Good. Oh, watch your step. A lot of dead branches.
Thank you very much.
We're in the lower Hudson Valley of New York at a private residence in a community which is right next to a forest. The challenge here is for a landscaper to be able to bring the natural setting, the native plants, into a home where they want it to be neat but still have a natural setting. So let's catch up to Pete, see what he has to show us.
The challenge here in this particular landscape is twofold. One, the owner would like to see a very neat garden, and two, we got to bring this whole native plant concept back into the yard. So here are the problems we have to deal with in this yard. One, we've got the pool pump right here, which the owner wants to hide, which is a good idea so we don't see and hear this. Two, we got this grade change behind us here, and the owner would like to give herself a little bit more privacy between the pool and the house. Three, we've got the deck right here that needs to be incorporated. And four, we got the grade change between the pool and the house.
Underlying the design implementation of this project is the ecological consciousness of environmental preservation. Things like less pesticides, less fertilizer, less water are really, really important. As you can see, we have quite a grade situation here.
And what the owner would like to do is make this deck a little bit bigger and put a roof on it right here to create a little bit shade right here. Bring the deck out bigger and then create a level playing field right here so we're not coming up, down, and then back up to the pool. Create some boulders and a little rocky hillside right here with some trees growing up out of it. Once again, we're going to hide the pool pump and create a nice little level area right here to integrate the deck into the pool and bring this whole landscape together.
And down here?
Over here, we're going to do the same thing.
Perfect. Sounds like an interesting project. When we come back next time, we'll see how the work has progressed. I'm Ken.
And I'm Pete, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Pete, I noticed the water level of the river is a lot lower than normal.
It sure is, Ken. Being that it's basically the driest part of the summertime, we could really use some beneficial rains this time of year. But as you can see behind us in this meadow, you got this beautiful meadow with its wildflowers and grasses that are still very lush.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Native plants?
Native plants that have adapted to this site, yes.
Looks great. I'm Ken. Welcome to the Living Landscape Journal.
And I'm Pete. Today we're going to talk about watering and when to water plants that are under stress. Ken, let me show you some plants around the house.
Please do. Let's go.
Ken, this is what I wanted to show you. This is a shad tree, and generally speaking, shads are pretty much disease and pest resistant.
So why does this one look so unhealthy?
Well, as you can see here, it's got the speckled leaf, and if you look under the leaf, it's got the lace bug going on underneath. What that's telling us is this plant needs some water.
So it doesn't get enough water here?
Well, it might get enough water, but what's happening is the stone here is drying out the soil underneath it with the hot sun baking down on it.
So what can we do to help the tree?
Well, what I would recommend doing, Ken, is bringing the hose out and putting the hose on trickle, which is something like this, and setting that hose right underneath the trunk and let it really soak into the roots.
And how many times in a typical summer would we need to do this kind of deep watering?
With this whole ecological gardening, we don't want to give the plant too much water. We want to let the plant go under a little bit of stress because that's going to make for a healthier plant. So depending on the weather, maybe once or twice a summer.
It's a fascinating concept that you don't want to help the tree too much. I'm Ken. Thanks for joining us on the Living Landscape Journal.
And I'm Pete. We'll see you next time.